Rebecca Martin is a community organizer and jazz musician who lives in Kingston, New York with her husband and son. How are you doing during this COVID pandemic?
So I think I'm in the same boat as most people. We're fortunate to be able to stay home, but doing a lot of work. I'm working from home still on policy work and my advocacy, 12 to 14 hours a day. It's very grueling, but I'm really happy to be contributing something positive and to help others in that way.
So I know you're an activist and musician. Do you ever incorporate both?
I've always been an organizer or a manager or coordinator, and I've always made music. And so that initially was really that coordinating, organizing came into play through record making. I produced all my records primarily. So today, to be honest, everything I do is is very similar to how I write songs in terms of, the strategies that I work on. They're out of the box. I think out of the box, outside of the box quite a bit. And, and I stick with it until it's done. I don't give up. And I think that's really something that music has helped to teach me as well, working on a song.
When did you first get into community organizing?
I have been doing music organizing up until probably 2005 when I had my son, and it eventually morphed into community, as in where I live, community organizing and advocacy. It has morphed again where now I'm working within New York State. So I've transitioned into water policy, drinking water, surface groundwaters to protect the Hudson River. So it's taken me out of Kingston local, and really kind of the circle has widened again.
My first question for you is, what can you tell us about your greatest achievement as an activist?
The greatest achievement for me is always when I see new people understand, the light bulb goes on. I have taken on probably 100 different topics over the course of my career. So a topic may interest a new group of people. It's not always the same people that I work with. It's always changing, just like everything else. So there's always new people coming in and out of the work. And so for me, the greatest achievement is seeing someone new understand their civic responsibility, and then to watch where they go. So it isn't necessarily a project that's my greatest achievement. It's the people that step forward in these times and understand that it's really a ripple effect from the inside out. If you understand how your local government works, you can apply that moving out. It really builds on the knowledge and helps us to maintain policies and laws so that they don't erode, right? We need those protections. And so the more of us that understand how it works from the inside out, I think there's more staying power that way. That's the most incredible feeling. And it's available for all of us to experience.
So I read you are a founder of Kingston Citizens. So what projects are you currently working on?
I'm working on one that's very difficult it's a very specific Kingston issue. We have a luxury apartment building being devised by very wealthy developers who initially did not consider affordable housing. There was a lot of bending of laws and policies to make something enormous that would be very profitable more likely. There's a lot of government taxpayer subsidies, or they call them incentives, that help to offset the developer's initial investment. They call it corporate welfare in some circles. So, you know, it's been a hard project to try to pull into compliance so that the public benefit is in balance with the development profits. But we have to make sure that everyone can afford to live, and that they have a home, and that they can afford and work. The working issue is a big issue, a lot of issues. But you think outside of the box, and there are solutions. They're just not 1950s solutions. So that's what I'm working on. A lot of equity issues, housing, taxes, how taxes are spent. It's very complicated, but you can visit kingstoncitizens.org and you can follow along and read some of it. It's a little wonky, as they say. It's really in the weeds. We try to simplify it, but processes can be, they're important to try to understand. So we do our best.
How has COVID impacted or redefined your activism?
I've been dealing with COVID mostly in the water world and in the scientific world. And we do a lot of community science. So all the streams and the tributaries that run into the Hudson, right? It's like a basin, and all the rainwater that finds its way through the watershed, in general basic terms, into the river. So one of our jobs is to monitor the water quality within the watershed of the Hudson River. And we know that COVID is found in human waste. And so it going right into the river like that, we've had a lot of work with scientists to understand COVID's lifespan in the river. How long does it live in the river? That has really changed how we do things. Our community science program was canceled this year. It was canceled in the spring. We've just started to get up and running again. But the science there has challenged us a lot and changed how we do our work. There are lots and lots of organizations that are doing mutual aid, that are finding ways to support communities with food deliveries and with, advocating to change laws to the best of our ability. It's complex, to stave off evictions and to find ways to support renters, homeowners. But I think that COVID is exposing the gaps in our system in America, big time. And I'm grateful for that, because I wasn't sure what was going to do it. And though this is quite a disaster, it is providing an opportunity.
So I read the article in the New Yorker that talked about when you organized your community to stop Niagara bottling from sourcing water from a reservoir in Woodstock, which I personally find very, admirable. So when you became aware of Niagara Bottling's plans for Kingston, how did it feel at first and later to go up against such a large company?
So as a civically engaged person, I read the papers every day. And I noticed a little tiny mention of this water bottling company from California. Niagara Bottling was having some conversations with local officials. And so my radar went off, and I was concerned, and I reached out, and no one knew what it was. So it wasn't until they got all of the approvals that they thought that they needed to move this thing quickly that it suddenly appeared in the paper on the front page. And because I had been so engaged locally, I knew exactly what to do as a community member. I wasn't, back then I was doing potlucks and educational forums, and learning local government and how it worked. So I was very quickly able to mobilize the community and to start this regional. We were the epicenter of understanding what this all was for the region, and because it would have been the first large water bottling facility. Certainly Niagara is first on the East Coast, but I don't know of any water bottling facility anywhere around here. So we rallied, we have lots of allies, and in 5 months we got them out of here. You know, you think outside of the box, and in environmental matters, you go for the money. You get rid of the incentives, and they're gone. So we did a big campaign and realized that the water powers law that allowed an independent body, our water department, to sell the water didn't have any council oversight. And so we fixed that. We added the Common Council, so our representatives, to be involved in any water sales outside of our community.
And it's so great that the New Yorker wrote a piece about it, so that it brought it to the attention of, I guess, you know, the world, really, because,
right.
You know, I think that's wonderful.
Well, one of my friends, as you read, is an actress named Rachel Weisz. She brought that attention to the New Yorker. She did. She was involved in the project with me, and, you know, cares very much and is an advocate too in her work. I think, you know, doing what she does. And so that was really helpful and unexpected. And I'm glad. What ended up happening, though, when I think about the problem nationally, is I put Niagara bottling on Google Alert. So wherever they showed up, in whatever community they went into, in Texas, you know, anywhere, I would send the municipalities the timeline and warn them of the project problem that we had, and so that they could see the play-by-play. And in fact, we, the advocates of Kingston citizens, at one point drove to another community and helped them to engage 2 hours away in Connecticut, where Niagara Bottling ended up succeeding to come in, but that's because their water is managed by the state. So our water is managed by our local government, our municipality. We have more power to impact that. You can see when you start to get into authorities, public authorities, and worse, when you privatize your drinking water, you lose total control over it.
What advice would you give to young people who want to get involved in fighting for change?
So for young people, a really good way, a good approach, and this is what I did in New York City. What organization do you know that you admire? Where's the work that you admire? And call them and see if you can, you know, do something over the summer, if you can, and see what they might have available for youth. And you know what, if they don't have something, depending on your time and your interests, you could build something for them. It could be an outside, like in Kingston Citizens, you know what we don't have? We don't have a youth council that's shadowing the Common Council, and we really should. And so it'd be really fun to work with youth to build that and to figure out how to make that work, right? A pilot project or something like that, if it doesn't exist. Like, don't let that get in your way, you know? I think it's so important to imagine what the needs are, and then to work to, at your age, to find solutions, right? The solutionaries. So if I were to get a call from a youth who said, I love what you're doing, I would like to work with you, what can I do? You know, I would be so happy, and I would work to create something, I'm sure. So that's what I would recommend. You know, what platform is out there doing work that you admire? Do they have programs for youth or ways for youth to tap in and to volunteer, or to learn, or even to get paid, which I kind of am a big advocate for. I think everybody should be paid for their work.
How did you know what steps to take when you first began your activism? Were there people you went to for guidance on becoming an activist?
One of the first thing that I actually did is connect with my neighbors and start to discuss the issues that we were all experiencing, and coming to consensus that there was a problem. And from there, we reached out to our elected officials or to our planners that work in city government, et cetera, et cetera. So I think you find out what you need by just jumping in and doing the work. It really is so important that we connect with one another. And early on when we had some issues, we'd have a potluck and everybody would come over and we would talk about the problem. That's morphed into, let's ask a couple of people who are in our community who are experts on this issue and see if they'll come to a public space and explain to us what this is. And then what happens is we're building our knowledge base and we're meeting experts. People need to see one another and talk to one another and build trust. And that takes time and that takes contact.
So how do you go about choosing what issue you will take on next?
At Riverkeeper, it's all based on the Hudson River. So anything that happens that could impact negatively the Hudson River and the watershed, we're on it. If I happen to see something like Niagara bottling, I can bring that forward. If I get a call from a community member who's concerned about something and has 2 or 3 neighbors that are concerned about it too, I'll get a call and I will help them to organize and to strategize and let them go do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Teach a person to fish kind of thing.
Yeah.
And help to support them to go after so that there's little bonfires everywhere of activity. So that's typically how it works. It's pretty fluid.
So how have you been spending your time during quarantine? Have you been cooking, writing songs, playing music, baking, etc.?
I love that question. I've been working harder. What the heck? Zoom has totally complicated my life. Now there's one meeting after another. It's like everyone has figured out. We used to walk from one meeting to the other or drive or we could pick up some lunch. Now it's just back to back to back to back. We're doing more than we've ever done. But I love cooking. I love it. I grow gardens. I raise a family. I have animals. I feel like, you can do all these things. It's a process in time management, and it's fluid. Again, you can't hold fast to any one thing. You've got to be flexible in life. And I am not doing as much music, but all my creativity is in my work. It's not that I'm doing less. I don't see it as one or the other.
I know your husband is a bassist. Do you ever perform together?
We do. In fact, that's my favorite. He's a wonderful musician, jazz bassist. He has a really unbelievably poetic career, I would say. He's a poet, a real poet, and a technician. He's old school. We came up in New York City where you had to just play gigs, and he's just, I am biased, but in this case I'm not. He's just special. And we have a very deep connection, and we've been married 25 years now, which is amazing. There'll never be enough time, in my opinion, with that person. So we play together when I play, but he spends, he's in a few different bands, and that's how he makes his music and a living.
Well, thank you so much, Rebecca. We really appreciate today. It was so much fun and so informative, and it was so great to see you.
What a group, too. You guys are wonderful. Thanks for your questions and giving me a chance to answer them. I don't get much time to think about that stuff, so I really appreciate it. And I hope some of it's been helpful, and that you will think a lot about local government. As a little, if you want a little task, look and see where you live and go see the website and read a little bit about what form of government you have. Do you have a mayor? Do you have a supervisor? Do you have board of trustees, council members? And just be inquisitive about it and take your time and poke around and see, and be in touch anytime. Thank you for all you're doing. What an inspiration you are.
Oh, thank you.
To all of us for working with youth. I love what you do.
Right. Thank you, Rebecca.
All right, everybody, stay safe. Good luck.